I personally have made all of these mistakes, some of them not very long ago. Keep watching for 5 common beading mistakes and how to avoid them. Be sure to stay tuned to the end for a 6th bonus tip that will improve every single piece of beading you do. Hey there, Sandy here. If you are looking to grow and improve in your creativity, you're in the right place. Let's jump right in with number 1. In every batch of beads, there are always a few with problems, like clogged holes, especially ones with these pretty coatings. It's just a part of the manufacturing process. And multi-hole beads are awesome, like these iris duos with 2 holes. They make stringing interesting patterns, just really fascinating. But they have a serious downfall. You may string through one hole in a design and not notice that the other is clogged until later, sometimes much later. Like in this bracelet that is made with super duos, this design starts here building around the Tila bead through just one hole of all of these super duos all the way down, and you don't get back to the second hole of the first bead you put on until you have almost finished the pattern. This happened to me. The very first bead I put on had a clogged hole. How do you avoid that problem when you're using 2-hole beads? Well, here's a trick for you. Stab your needle through one of the holes. Then pull your needle out and use the second hole to bead through. Now you know that that other hole is clear. If you're using a pattern and you know exactly how many beads you're going to use, like in this Iris Duo tape cover, which uses 90 Iris Duos for the whole thing, you might want to just count out your beads. So count out 90 and check them all, and then you can bead away. And yes, by the way, I took this entire design apart and redid it. You might be able to take a pair of pliers, hold it over a trash can, and very carefully break the bead that isn't going to work for you. It depends on the design. You might be able to stitch it back in. That didn't work for this pattern though. I had to take the whole thing apart and redo it. Mistake number 2 is making a wrap bracelet too short. This is the yoga bracelet. It's supposed to be 3 wraps, but if I try to put this on at a comfortable place to wear it, you can see it's just a little short. And the problem was I wasn't paying close attention when I was measuring it, and I just very carelessly wrapped it right here on my wrist to test it, which, as you can see, actually fits. But guess what? It's not comfortable there. It's too tight. So keep that in mind when you are sizing bracelets. Put them where you want to wear them, because your arm tapers up and gets wider and wider the further up you go. Now, for this particular one, my solution, because I did not have any more of the cord that I used to do this really cute macrame design, I took the starfish charms and a seahorse charm that I had on hand and made it into a really sweet beach necklace. If you wanted to, if you had more of the cord, just add another piece. So instead of adding my loop here, I would just tie on, maybe add some fancy knots with dangles like this, tie on another piece, and then make it the length you need. But the best solution is to measure correctly from the start, keeping in mind the way the shape of the arm works. The third mistake is not testing alternate color patterns or bead combinations. This one is the Daisy Bangle from the June 2021 Potomac Bead Box. And by the way, most of these designs that you're seeing are from the first 6 months of 2021 Potomac Bead Boxes, and I will link to them. Thank you to Potomac Beads for sending these along for me to play with. I really love them. But sometimes it takes a little adjusting, so I thought these were really cute. It's a very simple, sweet little bracelet to make. I started beading and looked at that section. Now, there's nothing wrong with it, but for me personally, it was just a little too pastel. If you make a section and you don't like it, stop and identify what it is you don't like. In my case, I thought it was just too soft, and I couldn't really see the contrast between the greens. They were both just so light. I brought in a darker color green bead, and I'm going to use, this is my dark and this is my light, and not use these ones. And then I also brought in a dark purple and kind of did the same thing with the flower colors. I'm using the darker one and not the lightest that was included in the kit. Just 2 changes. Everything else is staying the same. Here is the sample I made with just those 2 different colors. And it's a good idea, just change 1 or 2 elements at a time. Don't change everything. Just change 1 or 2, make a sample. In this case, I got this far before deciding that this green was just too bright. I like the purple and the pink, but this green was just too bright. It isn't really colors I would wear. I decided it was too more of a yellow green, and I prefer cooler colors, so I brought in more of a blue green. Sometimes it's helpful when if to make a section and then step away for a bit and come back, and when you look at it on your table, it's often easier to identify if you like it or not, or what you don't like about it. So in this case, I brought in this blue-green, and here is my finished bangle, and I'm really happy with this. I love the colors. I will definitely wear this a lot. I am far more happy with it than I would have been in these shades. The St. Petersburg stitch bracelet from the February 2021 XL box is a great example of how much difference one small change can make. So these are the beads that come in the kit and the ones that are pictured on the pattern. And I just looked at them one look and I knew they were all too samey-same for me. And I needed a little bit of something, some kind of contrast. And all I did was I took out these 15-0s for the little points here and brought in some gold. And suddenly I've got a bracelet that is really far more interesting, I think. So just one little change can make a great big difference. If it isn't practical in the design you're making to make a big sample, or if you just aren't sure about a combination of beads, like in the yoga bracelet, here's another way to test a combination. Just dump them all out on a beading mat. If you like the combination there, you will probably like it in the design. Having them together but spread out like this makes it obvious if there's something you need, like lighters or darkers, or if something jumps out at you that doesn't belong. It'll be very easy to fix that before you even start beading. Before I continue, I have to take a moment to give a huge thank you to my patrons. If you are enjoying this video, you should thank them too, because without their support, I wouldn't be making YouTube videos. If you like creative tutorials like this one, you might want to check out becoming a Patreon supporter. Patrons can access up to 2 bonus videos every single month. Onward to number 4. So back to this Iris Duo tape cover from the March 2021 Potomac Bead Box. I wanted to have 2 different sides so that I could tell easily which one has the button to release the tape. And I also wanted more than one color on each side. I thought this was just a little boring. I wanted to have a different color on each of the rings. So this outside ring takes 16 of the Iris Duo beads, but I only had 12 of these green ones, and I really wanted to use them. So just making a symmetrical arrangement looks intentional, and you probably didn't even notice the variation at first. Don't be afraid to do that. If you plan it carefully, it will not be obvious, and it will look like you meant to do it that way. Or if that's not practical, you can just fill in the ones you are short on with beads you have. Yes, I know this is broken. More on that in a minute. This is the Mountain Streamlet bracelet, and I will link to that. And in this one, I did not have enough of the red silkies. And so I just filled in with a color that I had, and that worked. It's just on the ends. There's no particular rhyme or reason. And you know what? Nobody has come up and pointed out to me, you've got different beads there. And if you love the peyote triangle toggle, I will link to how to make that. It's easier than it looks. And number 5, not accounting for the thickness of beads when making a bracelet. Getting a bracelet the correct size is tricky. And believe it or not, every well-fitting bracelet is not necessarily the same length. Here are 2 bracelets that fit me fine in the same spot on my wrist. But if I take them off, you will see a big difference in their length. This one, by the way, is the Orange Blossom necklace from the April 2021 Potomac Bead Box. But I made it into a bracelet because I just liked it better that way. But take a look at the difference in the length of these 2 bracelets, and yet they both fit me, you saw, perfectly. The difference is the thickness of the beads. So the Orange Blossom bracelet is made with these 8mm round beads, giving it a lot more thickness. And the St. Petersburg stitch bracelet is made with 4mm cubes, so it is much, much thinner and flatter. Because the difference in a bracelet size is not really the length. The length is not the important thing, it is the inside diameter because we are measuring around something, namely a wrist. So because this bracelet uses 8mm beads, it needs more length to have the same inside diameter as this flatter, thinner bracelet. If you want to know more details about how all that works, I will link to my video here on YouTube called Bracelet Sizing, How to Get the Perfect Fit. Number 6 is a bonus tip for you, not reinforcing the thread path. What do you see here at where my bracelet broke? One thread, a single thread, not good. When I was learning how to bead, several bead designers incorporated reinforcing right into their directions, and I was kind of aggravated by that as I was learning because it felt like it would make the project take twice as long. But now I know it is time well spent because not only does it make your pieces stronger and longer lasting, it's amazing how much it firms up a floppy design. Now I always try to get at least 2 threads through every single bead. Now that you know how to avoid these pitfalls, check out these cute earrings using 2-hole beads. Share in the comments any tips or beading mistakes